time?
They're going to go through a go, no-go poll again. It looks like they're about to enter that. And for those that don't understand what that process or what that communication is like, can you give us an insight of what that actually means?
100%. So each one of the systems and components of this rocket, inside the Fire Control Center and Mission Control, there are engineers and systems experts that are going to look at all of the data coming from all of those different systems. And they're making determinations in real time. Are there any anomalies that would say that we should not go, or are we go? And as they poll, if everybody's a go, then they go. And it sounds like if they're moving forward with the go, no-go criteria, that sounds like it's going to be a go, unless something pops up here in the last few seconds.
Right on the money. We just got the word that we are a go. So the countdown resumes T-minus 10 minutes. Before we let you go, 10 minutes until humans are back on a trip to the moon. We know the importance to this country over the last, since 2012?
Yeah.
Decade and a half or so. What are your thoughts on actually seeing this rocket with people on it leave the Earth?
So just to be clear, the last time we launched a rocket with humans to the moon was 1972. So it's been 54 years, and we haven't had a mission like this. We've started missions, we've stopped missions based on presidential administrations. This program, the Artemis program, to return to the moon sustainably, in other words, we're going to stay. We're going to build a moon base on the moon. Jared Isaacman, the NASA administrator, announced that President Trump has agreed to, we're going to build a moon base, which is a really exciting thing for our country. We're not going to leave flags and footprints. We're going to establish a base. We're going to use the resources of the moon to learn to live and work on the moon for long periods of time. A lot of people don't realize. In 2009, we discovered that the moon is covered in water ice. There's hundreds of millions of tons of water ice, especially on the south pole of the moon. Now, that water ice represents oxygen for air to breathe, water to drink. Of course, it represents hydrogen for fuel. And we also know that the moon is covered in rare, I'm going to use a term people are going to make fun of me, but it's rare earth metals or rare lunar metals in this case. And we talk a lot about how important these rare minerals are here on Earth. The moon has much more than the Earth has, because of the Earth has an atmosphere, and any asteroid impacts coming through the atmosphere, they get burned up. Well, on the moon, there is no atmosphere. So asteroids are impacting the moon all the time. There's also not an active geology. So what impacts the moon stays there for billions of years in large deposits. What does that mean? That means there's a lot of resources on the moon that could be valuable for the Earth. We need to go and explore and find out what's there and ultimately determine if there's value in bringing those resources back to Earth. So there's a lot going on there. I would also say helium-3 is prevalent on the moon. If you can combine nuclear fusion with helium-3, you can power the entire city of Houston with a Coke can full of helium-3. And there's no carbon emissions, there's no nuclear waste. It solves our energy problems for the nation. So there's a lot, and we're only touching the surface of how valuable the moon is. And we need to make sure that when we go forward to the moon, we're not going back, we're going forward to the moon, because this time we're going to stay. We're going to learn how to live and work using the resources, and we're going to take all of that knowledge to Mars.
Yes, and of course, right now, if everybody's watching, you're saying it's 6:24, and it's still on the pad. We're going to get into that real quickly here, but former NASA administrator and managing partner of Artemis Group, Jim Bridenstine, thank you for sharing some time with us. I know you're going to be on standby watching this historic moment with us. We are in a go now, and it's exciting, but we still have a 10-minute hold, and notice, Ian, the clock hasn't budged.
Yeah, that's amazing context right there from the former NASA administrator. If anyone was wondering why do this, why take the risk to human life, why spend this money, this is a very important resource, and we know how the space program has pulled us forward, not just over the last couple of decades, since its inception, truly.
And this is the beginning. What this mission is all about is sending 4 astronauts, 3 of them Americans, 1 Canadian, and they're going to slingshot around the moon. They're going to go on the dark side of the moon. And what's important about this may be the furthest man has ever gone from Earth. And when you're looking at that, if they can complete this mission, then it sets up the next one. We just got word in. That clock, it's moving now.
Right. So that is, I would have loved to have seen the right there. Yeah, that's the clock right there. the reaction, that's the press mount and the iconic clock. It was stuck at 10. They went into the hold. They've resolved that issue. 9 minutes and 40 seconds to go until, at this point, Artemis II leaves the pad.
Yeah, if you're wondering, if you're just joining in, too, the confidence ahead was 90%. The weather has not been a problem. So a lot of excitement now as that clock continues to count down. And we still have some big moments, by the way, to check off in this last 9 minutes. And we'll unpack all of that. There's Old Glory, the American flag. You can see it whipping right now. But the wind speed's still at 23 miles an hour. So that is sub any type of concern, right? Once you get above 35, then you'd have some concern. But we still have great panelists that are standing by. They're going to watch this historic moment. And some of them, well, they've been on a shuttle before.
Yes. The launch is now slated for 6:35. So just to give folks the context, in between now and then, let's talk with one. Joining us now is Terry Hart, former NASA astronaut, a professor of mechanical engineering, the director of aerospace and space systems at Lehigh Valley University, also a retired United States Air Force fighter pilot. Great to have you back with us. A great resource that you've been for us here on Fox Weather throughout the last couple of days. These have been some tense moments. I know some trouble is expected, and the teams work through all that, but now we're sub 10 minutes, and that clock is counting down. What are your thoughts on where we're at?
This is how GLS configures.
The crew is very happy right now that clock started up again. But like I said earlier, the worst thing is having to unstrap and then do it all again the next day. So they're just watching very closely now and thinking about what they need to be doing during launch.
Yeah, and we're learning now that the official time to be watching for this, 6:35 and 12 seconds. But Terry, you've been in the position that many would dream to be in, and when you're sitting in there and you're in this window of time, are you talking to each other, the fellow astronauts, or are you going through checklists? What's that moment like in these final minutes?
Until this point, that was their way off.
No, it's mostly pretty quiet. We all want to listen to what's going on, of course, and the commander usually has a few remarks to the crew right before liftoff. But mostly we're listening to the countdown, and again, thinking about what we need to do as our part, as the astronauts during launch.
Terry, that's the gantry swinging away. I'm not sure if you could see some of the live pictures that we're showing here. There it is. If you look closely right at the top of the rocket where the crew capsule is, the Orion capsule, that swings away. So this is standing alone. I know as you were strapped in, could you see that happening? Are the astronauts being made aware that they're now in a sense standing alone on that pad?
Yeah, we could not in the shuttle. I don't think they can either. But they're watching the clock, and then the engines will start about 6 seconds before liftoff. You don't really feel that up in the vehicle, even though there's a tremendous amount of power down there in those engines. But boy, when those solid rockets flight, you really know you're going somewhere. You get pushed back in your seat very suddenly. And that first 2 minutes is a really bumpy ride. Those solid rockets resonated about 10 hertz. Below what you can hear, but boy, you can feel them for that first 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's incredible. We have some live visuals that are coming in from the Kennedy Space Center, and we're looking at everything is a go. We're now right at 6 minutes here. And Terry, we had the pleasure of just talking with Jim Bridenstine. He's the NASA administrator, and he was just speaking to why this is so important. This mission, he's a former NASA administrator. So I want to ask you, Terry, because you've been an astronaut, but you were inspired to be in the space program. And so for many of us that are watching this, the importance of this mission and how it kind of shapes and evolves what we will see in the years and decades beyond this.
We'll get the liquid oxygen tank a little
later. Well, we're explorers. It's in our DNA. We just want to get out there and explore, whether it's Antarctica or the deep oceans or outer space. We want to go there and learn about it. And the nice thing about all this is that maybe only 4 people are going today, but the whole world can watch. We can vicariously share in the adventure of returning to the moon.
Terry, these 4 people, they're about to be the only 4 people that have flown on Orion and the SLS into space. That trip into space, about 8 minutes. The countdown clock is top left on your screen, by the way. Just hit 4:59. So that's happening in 5 minutes if everything stays on schedule. What would that 8 minutes be like? The trip from the pad into at least low Earth
Safety
orbit?
can send a flight termination command.
This 8 minutes will be, the first 2 minutes will be very bumpy, like I said. Once you're out of the atmosphere, it's really quite amazing. The shuttle main engines back there are producing, they were a space shuttle, now they're the Artemis main engines, producing about 500,000 pounds of thrust each. But you can barely feel that up in the cabin. It's just a very slight buzz. In fact, I could remember hearing the fans on the computers in the space shuttle. It was that quiet. But boy, you're being pushed at 3 times the force of gravity during that time. So you know there's a lot going on behind you.
And Terry, I think there's a lot of excitement, of course, for the launch itself, but there's pivotal moments beyond that, right? You said that 8-minute window. You have the boosters that are going to come off, and I know we're just now under 4 minutes from this moment. What's that like as an astronaut in those preceding moments where you're talking about the boosters coming off? Is there a lot of movement where you're at, or is it kind of...
Meu trabalho é fácil porque eu uso o clique A. É assim que eu acompanho todas as minhas tarefas. Eu começo despejando tudo o que preciso fazer em uma visualização de lista. Depois, defino uma prioridade e uma data de entrega para manter tudo nos trilhos. Crio status personalizados para organizar meu progresso exatamente do jeito
properly. And then, like I said, that last 6 minutes is very quiet. But boy, when those main engines shut down, then you go from 3G's acceleration right to being away there.
Liftoff is when those engines
the
will
astronauts
come
can look
alive
up
for less than
at that
2
point.
minutes.
Just 2 minutes after launch, they can look up and the sky is very black.
And former NASA astronaut Terry Hart, thank you for being with us. I know you're going to watch this historic moment, but you know how important this is. We are now going to tune in with NASA. They're going to go through their final comms. You're going to be able to listen to that moment. So we want to give a chance for us to get into that coverage. Terry, thank you for staying by with us and all of our panelists that have been watching this along the way. Yeah, I think this is an exciting moment. Right, there's been a lot of anticipation, and now we're on the precipice of this historic launch for Launch Pad 39B.
1 minute and 30 seconds to go. We've got 4 astronauts. The commander, Reed Wiseman, the pilot, Victor Glover, mission specialist, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen from the Canadian Space Agency, a mission specialist. These will become the 4 people to ride in the Orion capsule aboard SLS Artemis II, the crew, headed back to the moon.
Across the press line here at the
and
Kennedy
historic
Space Center.
moments are going to happen with this. Christina Cook is going to fly further than any woman's ever been. And so we're going to be looking at some of those type of moments that are going to unfold. But we are now 1 minute or less. Take a listen to NASA's final communications here, or the communications in the final minute.
Sequencer to the rocket's onboard autonomous launch sequencer, or ALS. The rocket will count itself down, but honor any holds that could come from the ground. Now, shortly after liftoff, Houston will take control of the rocket, and my colleague Gary Jordan will take over commentary.
ALS, go for ALS.
Great call out. The rocket is on its own. 4 brave explorers ready to ride the most powerful rocket
8, 7,
NASA
6 should
has
have
ever
RS-25 start.
launched.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Sound suppression
0,
water is flowing.
And liftoff. Liftoff
And here
of
we
the
go.
Artemis II mission.
10,
the first crewed
9,
flight of the
8,
Orion spacecraft.
7,
The first
RS-25
humans to
engines
trip beyond low Earth
4,
orbit
3,
has taken off
2,
from Florida.
1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Good roll pitch. Roger, roll pitch.
Houston now controlling the flight of integrity of the Artemis II mission around the
Integrity, AMT high. AMT high.
on time, passing 30 seconds into the flight sleep. Integrity passes the alternate beacon. Target milestone. Mission Control Houston seeing good performance on 4 main engines. Space Launch System core stage.
Now about 1 minute in flight,
3
the
miles
SLS
in
rocket
altitude.
traveling faster than the speed of
Traveling
sound.
more than 1,200 miles per hour.
Engine's about to throttle back as it approaches max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. RS-20. Good confirmation past max Q. The RS-25
Mission elapsed
throttling
time,
back up to
passing 1 minute,
109% thrust
approaching max
capacity.
Q.
on. Pounce to Leon. Stan, we
Now
have you
about
loud
a
and
little
clear
more than a
on
minute and a half
Pounce to
into
Leon.
flight. Coming up next
Have you the same?
will be the separation of the
Communication
two
signal
5-second
transport
solid rocket
confirmed as
boosters a little
integrity
more
and
than
its
2
crew go
minutes into the
supersonic.
mission.
Approaching 90 seconds into the Artemis II mission. Integrity is 14 miles in altitude, 8 miles downrange, traveling more than 2,600 miles per hour. Approaching 90 seconds into the Artemis II mission. Integrity is 14 miles in altitude.
That roll maneuver we saw earlier, intentional to put the crew in the right orientation as the rocket continues to climb uphill.
1 minute
And a good
50 seconds
separation
of
of those
mission elapsed
solids.
time, standing by for main engine throttle down to 85%, ahead of solid rocket booster separation, expected at the 2 minute 9 second mark. Elapsed time, standing by for main engine throttle
5
down
solid
to
rocket
85%.
boosters chock
See
full of shuttle
throttle down.
heritage, having carried this crew on the first part of their journey.
Integrity, guidance converged, performance
Confirmed separation.
upper stage RCS ready.
Main engines throttling up, guidance converged.
75% of the initial thrust was those engines.
SM priming complete. Integrity, guidance converged, performance nominal, upper stage
Now
RCS ready.
approaching T+3 minutes into the flight. Coming up next will be the jettison of the launch abort system. At that point in the mission, it
Integrity,
will no
SM
longer be
priming
needed.
complete. SM priming complete.
Now more
2
than
minutes
3
45
minutes
seconds
into
of
this
mission elapsed
flight
time
of
into
the
the Artemis
Artemis
II
II
mission.
crew
Thrusters on integrity
on board their
and
Space
upper
Launch
stage
System
confirmed in a
rocket.
ready state, ahead of service module fairing separation. 5 seconds of mission elapsed time into the Artemis II mission. Thrusters on integrity and upper
There go the
stage
covers for the
3
launch
minutes
abort
into the
system.
flight.
Now it has
Integrity,
been
49
jettisoned.
miles in altitude, 78 miles downrange, now passing 5,000 miles per hour. 3 minutes into the
Orion
flight.
Integrity now
49
no longer
miles
having the
in
launch
altitude,
abort system.
now passing 5,000 miles per hour.
Copy jettison, Team Eco 8+02.
Standing by for launch abort system
And with that
jettison.
protection covering now gone,
Houston Integrity, good last jettison, great view.
System jettison.
Copy
Windows
jettison,
are open as
Team
you
Eco
just
8+02.
reaching the Kármán line, entering space.
We
First
see the
space
same
flight for
report, Stan.
Jeremy Hansen, the second
And
for
Houston has you loud and
Wiseman,
clear
Victor
on
Glover,
Tejas
and
at the
Christina
Kármán
Cook.
line.
Now a little more than 4 minutes into flight. The next big milestone is coming up in about 4 minutes' time. We're watching for
3 minutes 50
the
seconds
core
into the
stage
flight of
main
Artemis
engine
II.
cutoff.
Wiseman,
This will be
Glover, Cook,
Miko,
and Hansen
where the
crossed the
4
boundary to space
RS-25
with good
engines
comm
will
checks.
power down.
GPS signals
That'll be
acquired
followed
after
a little
last
more than
jettison,
10
now
seconds
working on
later by
internal
the
checks to
separation
verify
of the
accuracy.
core stage and the
Flight dynamics
ICPS,
officer
the
analyzed the
rocket's
time
upper
of main
stage,
engine cutoff
which
and
will
last
be
jettison,
powered
now
by
working on
an
internal checks to
RL-10
verify
engine
accuracy.
from L3 Harris.
Everything is going well with Artemis II. They have passed the Kármán line,
Continuing to
and
get
so this
great
is an
tracking
important
views this
moment for all of this. You
April
saw the
1st,
boosters, they separated,
Artemis II.
and then about a minute or so later, we had the LAS that separated as well. So a lot that is unfolded here in a matter of minutes, and I mean, what an incredible moment to watch
Stunning.
us. Yeah.
You pass the Kármán line, Steve, you're in space.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
Good words by the
basically.
commander.
And you
heading
heard the
towards that
acceleration up
beautiful
to 5,000
moonrise.
miles
Their
per hour
zero-G
as they
indicator happens to be
were
named
about
Rise
to
as well.
jettison the last. So that's the launch abort
Created by a
system.
second grader in
That was
California,
one of
taken
the
from
issues that we
inspiration by
worked through
the
aboard
iconic-
that earlier today. But you heard him say, successful
First rise
last jettison. We got a great view, meaning they can see out the windows now, and what they're seeing is Earth below.
What an amazing moment for these 4 astronauts. 3 of them Americans, 1 Canadian. It's a historic moment, and they're on their way, slingshot around the
call we were
moon.
just hearing
And it was
regarding
incredible,
the
Ian, just
engines.
being here in the studio, watching
Still
it
have 4
on the
good
TV here. You can
RS-25s.
hear that
Only 3
thunderous
would be needed
noise
to
of it
carry it
all.
to
We got
the
teams that are on the
correct point
ground,
for
and
Miko at
the
this
people
point,
that
so
are
they
witnessing
are
this
in a very
firsthand.
good
I
position
mean, I imagine they're just trying to figure out what they
stage
just
in
saw,
flight,
how
now
incredible that
approaching
was.
It's a
T+6
human thing.
minutes.
It's a member of humanity. There's this feeling of triumph that you can't really describe. The fact that there's people on that, and those people on their way to low Earth orbit. We should point out, I believe it was just after 8 minutes in. So you see the count now is plus. We're 6 minutes into the flight, just beyond
Looking
8 minutes,
at
right,
a
Christopher? Is
animation
Miko,
rendering a
main
visualization
engine
you can see
cutoff.
in the upper left-hand
And
corner of
at
the
that
screen.
point,
This is not from a
we're
tracking
effectively
camera, but a visualization of what is happening in real time.
Yes, that's correct, Ian and Steve. And one other thing that was
Air
just called
integrity,
out on
expect
the
nominal
audio from
shutdown.
The folks at Kennedy Space Center is that the Artemis II rocket is now traveling at more than 10,000 miles per hour. In fact, I'm seeing in some of the data here now 11,500 miles per hour as this rocket leaves Earth on its long trek to the moon.
Has to be
Incredible moments, and we're giving you updates minute by minute here as we continue our special coverage of Artemis II. And we have an entire team, but we have panelists that have been watching this, experts, and one that we had just talked to, former NASA astronaut Terry Hart. I think it speaks to this moment that as humans, you have that heart of exploration.
Now,
this is that pivotal step of going where no one's been before. If they can complete this 10-day mission, it is going to be iconic, getting on the other side of the moon and setting the table for hopefully getting civilization to the moon in the years ahead. You're just watching these visuals, and that was another thing it said. Everybody around the world can witness this. It's not like back in the 70s where maybe you had that limitation. Now you're getting this from different vantage points where we're actually on the space shuttle and you're seeing the camera vantage point of that.
Yeah, all things nominal on their way to establishing, as we move forward through this next stretch, a stable Earth orbit. Steve, we got to find out what this was like down at Kennedy Space Center. We've got Fox Weather correspondent Brandy Campbell. She's down live at KC. We're going to leave the feed up so you can see everything that's happening. Brandy, I know it's a professional environment at the press mound. Even so, what was that scene like as you watched that leave the pad?
Here momentarily.
You know what? Professionally, we were covering it, and then everybody stopped. You know what? I think there was a silence here at the press site as everybody waited to see if it was going to take off when it got down to zero, and it did.
Nominal MECO, core stage separated.
It took, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds before I could really hear the rocket. You saw it first, I could hear it, and I was looking at the countdown clock, and it was about 25 seconds in before I could just feel the vibrations through my body, and we could hear the cheers of people here at the press site, just so excited to see it happen. Personally, my heart was racing. Not because I was nervous, but it's just the excitement of seeing something so spectacular, something you do not see every day. Maybe every other day if you live here along the Space Coast, but it's not every day you're seeing a rocket that is headed for the moon with 4 astronauts on board, also making history, the first African-American person on board, first woman as well, and then a Canadian too, the first, all 3 of them, the first to go into deep space representing. So this is such an exciting day. There were just waves of cheers here at the press site. As we take a look behind me, there's still so many people here. They haven't left yet. Camera's still set up, but now we have launch pad 39B. It is now without Artemis, and you know, we've been looking at that site for the past 3 days. Artemis was standing tall, and now this is all I got, guys.
Right, now it's gone, Brandy.
My example of it.
Yes.
Put it in its place.
We just got word, Brandy, the core stage, main engine cut off, a successful separation.
Is it gone?
A trajectory is a thumbs up. Christopher's given us the thumbs up. Everything is good. That upper stage, Chris, has that burn started? Not yet. Okay, so that'll be the one that takes it into the stable low Earth orbit. But Brandy, stay with us. We'll be checking back with you in just a few.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people that just witnessed this incredible moment, and that includes Homer Hickman. He joins us. Homer is actually the best-selling author of Rocket Boys and many other books. He's also a retired NASA engineer and astronaut training manager. And Homer, it's a pleasure to have you with us tonight. And you just witnessed an incredible moment. Can you walk us through what that was like to see Artemis II launch off of launch pad 39B?
Well, my heart is still thumping, and I was just sitting here watching it. I'm hoping it'll slow down in a minute. Today, with the propellant loading was so flawless, I just had a feeling that this was all going to go off on time
just a reminder, halfway open on the secondary.
Go right on uphill. Of course, coming from the era of the Challenger, we're always happy to see those solid rocket motors work and then be jettisoned. and the core stage take over. I am just so impressed with this whole launch. The core stage did just a fantastic job. Those 4 RS-25 engines worked flawlessly. This is just an amazing day. And
just confirming
all I
there
can
that
say
the Auto 10
is
nozzle
I am
was
hoping my heart
extended
will
as
slow down a
expected.
little
The
bit here
communication
as
now
we
from
go
the
along,
Johnson
but
Space Center to
I'm just so
Commander
happy
Reed Wiseman coming
for
from
NASA,
Capcom,
for
is
the folks
NASA
down at
astronaut
KSC
Stan
who
Love.
put all this together, and of course for the crew. And by the way, Christina Cook, I know fairly well. She went to space camp
will now
5
be able to
times
raise their visors as
between
well for
1992
NASA.
and 1996. So Christina has been looking forward to this day for a long time.
That's an incredible fact. And Homer, as you watch this, I know you've lived an amazing life in spaceflight, best-selling author, a wonderful movie about the story. I would think your bar, you seem pretty impressed by this. I would think the bar is pretty high. Does it feel like we're going back to another level in human spaceflight?
Oh, I think so. I mean,